Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, did you know there's a skill many men never learn that ends up seriously limiting your professional success and satisfaction in your love and sex life? I put together a free guide to explain this unknown skill and give you exactly what you need to use it today. Get it by heading over to ShaynaJamesCoaching.com or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144. That's 44144. You'll also get access to Man Alive outtakes, raw footage, and bonus videos you can only get there. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. Today's episode is a little bit of a different style. It's a co-interview with Michael Ellsberg, who is the author of The Education of Millionaires, Everything You Won't Learn in College About How to Be Successful. He also wrote The Power of Eye Contact, and he co-authored The Last Safe Investment, Spending Now to Increase Your True Wealth Forever. And as I read these titles of his books, I realize we're going to have him back on to talk about some of these things. But Michael and I decided to co-interview each other because he is the creator of the Consent Pledge, which is a pledge for men who have sex with women that goes like this. I commit to making sure all my sexual encounters are fully consensual. I commit to getting a clear verbal or nonverbal yes from my sexual partner or partners before and during sex. I commit to not pressuring her to say yes and to stop if she says no, and to ask if I'm unsure. I commit to stopping if, in my most honest assessment, I don't believe she is sober enough to give full consent. So this is a pledge that Michael wrote, and the goal is, I believe, to get 10,000 men to sign it by June of this year. I'd have to check on the exact numbers. But I wanted to have Michael on the show to support his pledge and really to be a stand for the fact that consent doesn't only create respect and deeper intimacy, but it can actually be really hot. And that the games or manipulations you might be tempted to try ultimately don't work. And, they might work in the moment, but they don't work whether it's 5 minutes later or years later. They leave you in a place of having to keep up a show or put on a mask and ultimately not get what you want, and women don't get what they want. And that I really fully believe consent doesn't have to be a downer, that it can actually stay sexy even with that kind of a conversation. And we give some examples in this episode, so stay tuned for that. And Michael wanted me on his show as someone who's worked with many men and to hear what it's been like for men these days, with the Me Too movement in all of our awareness. So we dive into the episode here with Michael starting to ask me about what I've seen with the men I've been working with as the Me Too movement has become, a bigger thing. And like I said, at the end, actually, we give some examples where Michael asks me if how did we phrase it? I think he actually even asked, knowing that nothing was going to happen, we were giving an example of what it was like for him to ask me if he could kiss me and how to actually stay connected and keep it feeling kind of spicy and hot while asking for consent. I hope you enjoy this episode and take away some really powerful ways that you can be in integrity, have respect for yourself, have respect for women, and keep things really sexy and connected too.
So what are you hearing from guys in your practice when you talk about Me Too or when they talk about it?
Yeah, a lot of what I'm hearing is confusion. A question of how do I actually relax and be myself and not feel like I'm bound in these boxes and I can't say anything or I can't touch a woman or I can't, it's like a lot of the sense of like, oh my God, I feel trapped, and especially because I tend to work with men who have really big hearts. They care about women, they respect women, so they want to do well by women and treat women well, and yet they're getting grouped in with anybody else who's done,
right,
who's had some kind of behavior that's negatively impacted a woman. But I think you and I can also talk about, right, how great guys sometimes don't even necessarily know the impact they're having.
Yeah.
I know that was part of your journey.
Totally. 2 women contacted me, and I had no idea that they had had a negative experience.
Wow.
I literally had no idea. And both of them had felt that I had really pressured them. And I felt like shit about that, and I apologized and listened to them. But
I admire that, right? That you're wanting to hear it, that you're willing to hear it, and so it doesn't have to be like, oh, if I did something like that and a woman comes forward and says so, the model I think that you're creating, right, is like, okay, I can be humble, I can receive that, I can learn, I can grow, I don't have to shame myself and feel horrible. And
yeah, I mean, a lot of emotions come up. I did feel horrible.
Yeah, right.
And mainly to learn. It's like, oh, okay, I had no idea that I was doing that I was pressuring, that I made a woman feel pressured.
Yeah.
And now I know, and that's why I'm like committed to this behavior change and committed to other guys getting it.
Well, right, and it's a really interesting thing to think about. Like, okay, so you had no idea that women were feeling pressured, and so there was a kind of innocence on your part, or a lack of knowledge, right, of impact.
Yeah, I would say it was just a total lack of awareness, and the first one was 10 years ago, and it was just at the tail end of my pickup artist days.
Yeah.
And I would say at that time in my life, I was like really objectifying women.
Mm-hmm.
They were just means to an end. Like they were not like the pickup artist guys.
On your belts or your
the bed notches. Like the pickup artist guys, the way they think and the way I thought when I was a part of that is basically like women are kind of like, it's almost like this interchangeable thing. Like you just try to, you
get one, you get
another. You try to spit this game and use these lines, and you see what works, and it's kind of like a numbers game. It's literally a sales mentality.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of the pickup artist guys were sales and marketing guys. That's not a coincidence at all.
It's so painful to me to hear, but I also have so much compassion. And I remember the first day that Decker and Brian with the Authentic Man program said, like, okay, these guys from the pickup community are coming in, and I think I sobbed. I think I was just like, I can't do this. I don't even know how to talk to men who think of, who objectify women. And then when the guys came in and I met them and they were humanized, or like it was like, oh my God, you're a man who's struggling and trying to figure out how to have love and have connection, and the only way you've been shown is like, oh, you could go to therapy or you can go to pickup, and therapy doesn't quite cut it in certain ways. And so I started to have a lot more compassion.
Yeah, I mean, underneath the pickup thing is, and not that far underneath, you just scratch the surface a little bit, as you probably saw with the Authentic Man program. There's a tremendous amount of insecurity, shame, desperation, like the whole panoply of shadow emotions and male shadow, and kind of fronting and trying to use women as an external validation for value. I would say that's extremely common. It's basically like, I don't feel worthy, I feel like a beta male, I feel powerless. And if a hot woman lets me have sex with her, and then that means something about me. That means that I have some kind of value. It's like a total external validation, which unfortunately has the effect of basically just turning the woman into like a pawn for the man's ego validation.
Right, which I think is really a huge part of this whole, what Me Too is showing or highlighting.
Yeah.
Men haven't actually, and women, young girls and boys, we weren't taught a lot about sex and how do we actually connect with each other, and how do we how do we feel wanted, connected, how do we have emotions, be human together, instead of just jumping into bed. And there is a way that I think a lot of adults didn't really teach us, because they felt weird about it. And so then we're all left trying to figure it out, and
nobody really has any information, and then we're learning from our peers and peer pressuring each other. And porn. And it just becomes a total nightmare.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I mean, the analogy I like to use is, imagine if we gave kids no education about how to drive at all. No driver's school.
God, that's a really good one.
And then said, oh, here are your keys. You're 16. Here are your keys.
Go out to the road.
Then they go, they crash, they hurt themselves, they hurt other people, they destroy things. And then we get pissed at them and we shame them.
Right.
We say, you fucked up. You're a bad person because you crashed.
Right.
And we never look at the fact that we actually gave them no education.
Right.
And I can't speak to this as much because I'm not a parent, but I'd like to hear your perspective on it. But in general, like, people are squeamish about talking about sex with their kids. It's like, it's
interesting because I have a 6-year-old boy, and it's kind of all over the place. You know, it's very present. But one thing I was going to say is, I always feel called as a woman to say, you know, I really support the women who are coming out.
Yeah.
To say all these things, and I also want to take the men with us
Yes.
and be allies as we rise, instead of creating a deeper shame cycle.
Yeah.
Right? Because I do think that because men haven't been given a lot of support or education, there's kind of like, I have sexual desires, I don't know what to do with them. I have to be like hidden, or I can't be out front with them because that doesn't work, or it's seen as abusive, and so then what do I do? So I always feel called to say it's not like I'm against, you know, women coming forward with this. I think this is a really powerful time, and I also want to support the men instead of putting it even more into the shadow.
Yeah. How do you think we can balance, how can we integrate that where there is a space where women can just be completely forthright and not cater to men's emotions, not soften the blow, not sugarcoat it, and also, you know, let men feel the impact of that, let them feel it, feel the feels about how they hurt this person, and like bring them, like you said, bring them with us. Like, how can we integrate all those things?
It's a really big question. I mean, actually, I had this vision of kind of like in South Africa, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I was like, what if there was something like that? You know, what if there was a way for people or men to hear from women, you know, this is what it was like, this is what happened, but that then we also guide the women how to not shame or attack. I mean, this goes so deep, right? Because when people have been raped or perpetrated in these ways, it's like, you know, to ask a woman not to attack back, but I don't know, somehow opening up more dialogue for this, I think, is really important.
I think that model of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission makes a lot of sense, because we're just starting to actually have the dialogue about patriarchy. Like, it's only been something that like radical feminists were allowed to talk about before, and now it's like, you know, in the mainstream media. And what we basically have to acknowledge, I think, is that most men have been implicated in that. And women play into it too in their own ways. I mean, everybody plays into patriarchy. It's like a societal-wide system, but most men, just like most white people, have played into racism, even if they don't think they're racist. It's analogous. And now, do you find that men really resist this idea? Like, for example, your clients are really solid men, they're leaders, they're not men who are like groveling around in the shame spiral, but do you find they resist the idea of like, okay, I've been a part of, even if they haven't done anything egregious themselves, like I've been a part of patriarchy, I've been a part of male dominance?
The men I tend to work with are the ones who actually acknowledge that, right? And they acknowledge that they have, even if they don't know how they have, or they're trying to learn about it. I mean, one of my clients recently was talking about an experience he had when he was, you know, a teenager, and kind of grabbing a woman's body because he saw someone else, or a young girl, I guess a young woman, because he saw someone else do it, and not realizing that there was anything wrong with it at that time. You know, so I think men are, at least the men I come into contact with, are starting to look back and starting to see, what have I actually done, and, you know. Yeah, there's like a mass, like, blinders coming off. Yeah.
Because that was just, the pickup thing when I was in it, like that was just what you did. Like it just felt like, oh, this is, guys were writing books about it. It seemed funny. It seemed like it was this whole culture.
And then it's like, well, how did it become that?
Yeah, and exactly. And you look back and it's like, what was I fucking thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you created a consent pledge, and your goal is to get how many men?
My goal is 10,000 men by June 1st.
Okay. And what is the consent pledge actually?
Well, the pledge itself is 4 sentences, and it says, I commit to making sure all my sexual encounters are fully consensual. I commit to getting a clear verbal or nonverbal yes before sexual escalation.
Mm-hmm. That could be tricky. But
yeah, the nonverbal part is the one that requires the most discussion.
Uh-huh.
I commit to not pressuring her to say yes, to stopping if she says no, and to asking if I'm unsure. I commit to stopping if, in my most honest assessment, she's not sober enough to give consent.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I mean, this is powerful, I think, because, well, we were thinking about or talking about a little bit was how some men just kind of attack or go for it, and other men kind of slink around the sides, and there's like a passive aggressive or some kind of pushing or prodding or creepy.
Yeah.
And that with both of those, there is no communication or dialogue.
Right.
And I often find that when men come to me, there's a lot of fear of that. Communication or dialogue isn't sexy. It kind of kills the moment.
Yes, exactly.
But I don't believe that, and I work with men a lot on that. And I'm curious, for you, I think you've had experiences where you've had a lot of communication and consent, and where it's gone well. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, this is basically it's a pledge to follow a version of affirmative consent. That's a new model of consent. That the older model was what some people call no means no, which is basically like, I'm going to keep trying to kiss the woman or whatever, trying to get some until she says no.
So it's kind of implied if she's not saying no.
Right.
Yeah.
It's sort of implied, like, if she's still there, if she could have left and she's still there, then it's consensual, which is really problematic.
Painful and problematic, yes.
Yeah. Because what we're learning now is that a lot of women have been socialized to just go along with the guy.
Right.
And like,
So
there's this powerful older guy. Sometimes there's an age difference or
he has like my career in his hands.
Yeah,
He can...
that's actually a whole other situation where I'm talking about like a dating scenario and not like
even just the age difference or the
So it's a commitment to follow affirmative consent, and affirmative consent is a completely different operating system.
Yeah,
it's only really it was invented at Antioch College in 1991.
Interesting.
And people made endless fun about it because it seemed so robotic. And they had a policy where you had to verbally ask at every level of physical escalation. And it really kind of tipped in the public consciousness around 2014 when California colleges like Berkeley, where we're right near, started requiring it. It was required as policy on college campuses. Wow. So it's a new operating system, and the thing that's most new and foreign to people is that it actually requires communication.
Yeah.
And we have a whole dating, courtships, flirtation, attraction, seduction script
based on not communicating.
Exactly. Our whole notion of like every rom-com you see, the woman's like, no, I'm not interested, and then the guy's like,
right.
I really want you. She's like, no, go away. And like the guy's basically a stalker, and there's no actual communication, and that's somehow supposed to be sexy and romantic.
Yeah, and it's painful. And I mean, what I love about the work that I get to do with men is that we talk about, all right, how do I ask this question? How do I ask if she's interested? How do I tell her I'm attracted? How do I say, wow, this is an amazing conversation and I'd love to take you home? And you know, like, how do we talk about all these things in a way that doesn't kill the attraction and that just has builds a lot of respect, a lot of trust? and in my experience creates incredible amounts of connection and intimacy and hotness
Yeah.
when you do it in a way that's connected versus, falling into your own awkwardness or thinking that there's something wrong with it or that talking makes you look weak or any of that.
Yeah. So so that's great questions. How do you do that? What do you tell your guys?
I know, great. Okay. What do I tell my guys? I mean, one thing I tell them and that we work through is that whatever shame they have or awkwardness gets communicated, right? So if when we work together to get to a place of like, my sexual desires are good and right, there's nothing wrong with them, like it's a natural part of me, and if I'm bringing them to a woman or somebody else, it's okay, right? She can say yes or no, and so now we're working with actually, consent, affirmative consent. But when a man ultimately believes that his own desires are wrong or bad or shameful, then he can't say it, or it comes out weird or awkward or stilted, and then it does kind of kill the moment.
Right.
But when he can bring it in a way where it's like, wow, you are amazing, like I'm loving this conversation we're having, and and I do want to kiss you, or like I would love to be closer to you, or I mean, as a woman, when men have said things like that to me, and it's like they're connected with me, and they're, I'm already feeling the energy, and our bodies are. I mean, even I can feel like our eye contact right now is different than a couple minutes ago, where it was a little more heady, right?
Right.
Now it's like, okay, we're here together.
Yeah.
And it changes things.
Yeah, that's such an important point. That the asking is separate from the energetic, erotic tension between two people, because you can have that tension or not have it, and you can ask or not ask.
Yes.
And those are two separate things.
Yes.
So if you already are established, well, let's put it the other way. If you don't have any erotic tension
or
if
like,
it's awkward and I'm like fidgeting and we're not making eye contact and I'm like, can I kiss you?
Right.
The answer is going to be no, but it's not because I asked.
Right.
It's because you weren't feeling it.
So true. Right. And I'm thinking about a date I went on years and years ago where like there was none of that. It was a very heady conversation. It was kind of awkward and distant. And I'm not saying it's his fault, right? We both were contributing to that dynamic. But then he went to try to kiss me at the end, and I was like, it just felt really strange. And then he said something, I think, like, oh, I don't even get a kiss or something. And some part of me was just like, it was awful, right? Like as though, and so that's another thing. Oh, nobody owes anybody anything. Yeah. And when we're coming from a place of scarcity of like, this is the only person who I could have this experience with, or, I'm not going to get to kiss someone or have sex with someone unless it's you. Then we start to pull and have all of this attachment.
Yeah.
And the one thing I also love to work with men around is feeling desire and like turn on and attraction and sensations in their body, not having to turn it off to be kind and respectful, that it's not about you not feeling it, it's about you not just acting on it or thinking that that you're owed something, because that does create what you were talking about, like that erotic tension. If we're both sitting here feeling the sensation in our body, but can we then be mature enough to know I don't have to do anything with it in this moment.
Yes.
Even if I want to, but we're gonna navigate that together.
Yeah, and actually enjoying feeling the tension.
Right.
The thing with Aziz Ansari, did you follow that one at all? I mean, it seemed like he just had no ability to, like he just wanted something, he wanted it fast, and had he just like slowed down and like I don't know any women who are like, I wish guys would just come on to me faster. I wish they would escalate. Yeah, right? No. But I know lots of women who are like, I wish guys would fucking slow down.
Right. As though intercourse and climax is like the end result and we need to get there faster.
Yeah.
Versus like, oh my God, there is so much pleasure and sensation and, connection that can happen. Like, from looking into each other's eyes or touching each other's fingers or touching each other's bodies or playing with energy. I mean, and then all of that gets totally missed.
Yeah.
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 So I want to go back to the consent pledge too and see, right, so your goal is to get 10,000 men to basically say, I'm going to practice affirmative consent.
Yeah.
And more? Is there more to it?
It's a commitment to behavior change.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not a legal contract. I'm not gonna follow up with the guys and be like, did you do that? It's
right. Nobody's checking.
No one's checking. I mean, they have to.
Integrity.
Yeah, it's your own. It's a commitment to yourself and a public commitment in a way where your guys are saying, this is my value system now. It may not have been so in the past. In fact, most people have never even heard of affirmative consent in the past.
Yeah.
But this is what I'm doing now. And it's also then a way of holding yourself and being held accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you then don't practice that or you fuck up, you have to acknowledge, okay, I committed to this behavior and I didn't follow it.
And that's a part of it?
It more in the sense just that when you commit to something and you don't do it, hopefully that creates a dissonance in yourself that you'll be aware of, and then get back on the train.
Well, right, and that would be my hope, is that if a man recognizes, oh, that wasn't actually me practicing affirmative consent, that he wouldn't then jump off the train, beat himself up, make himself wrong, but he could actually say, okay, I did that. That didn't feel right. That didn't feel good. I can go, apologize or make amends or whatever it may be, or, I recommit to myself.
Totally. Yeah, that exactly. That it's people fuck up even without intending to.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking about people who are intending to impose a sexual agenda on a woman without her will. We're talking about guys who generally want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But we're not actually taught how to make things consensual. We have effectively zero sex education in this country.
Yeah.
And then we expect people to know how to do things like communicate about sex.
Which is wow, it's one of the most powerful energies, that we have as human beings, and yet we're not educated.
Yeah.
I mean, that just has me have so much compassion for all of us.
Yeah.
What a mess.
We're in it's bumper cars.
Yeah.
We're in a bumper car situation, and we're just bumping into each other.
Yeah, and sometimes where my mind goes, I feel sad sometimes, because I get caught in some of the dynamics of disempowering myself as a woman. And sometimes I think, well, don't I have to help men understand what's in it for them? And sometimes I feel I hate that my mind goes there, because I want men to do this for themselves, because respecting women is a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also do recognize that when we take on a new behavior, we want to know what's in it for us. And I do see it benefiting everyone, right? Because I do see that right now, women can come to men with this prove it attitude, prove to me that you're not going to do bad things to me, or you're an asshole until proven not otherwise. And I think that the more men who are out there using this and doing this well, and respecting women, women are going to start to be able to relax a little bit more too, and not be so defensive or protective.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that through all of our efforts, everyone who's working on this, we create an upward spiral.
Yes.
Right now, we're in a downward spiral, like you just described, where women feel unsafe because men have been pushy and aggressive. They close down and put up boundaries because of that. Men get more desperate then because there's less sex available. Yeah. So they push harder, and then it just, boom, it goes down.
Right.
So if we could... And I really think the ball is in the court of men at this point. The women have spoken up. They've been incredibly detailed and courageous about what's wrong and these stories that have happened to them. And for the most part, I haven't seen that many guys responding.
Stepping up and responding.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think there is a part for women in, how would I say this? Finding compassion. I'm not saying every woman needs to do this. I'm not saying every woman is capable of doing this, especially women who've been severely abused. But one of the things I teach both men and women is if you're entering into a conversation or a date or something, can you see the person in front of you as this unique individual? Can you get to know this person instead of putting labels of all men are and all women are? And I mean, one of the practices I've taken on years ago is this practice of assuming the best. Or I would say, if someone, and I teach this one to women a lot. It's like if a man is doing some kind of behavior, and this is not in the realm of abuse or severe, but like, oh, okay, something that's not working for me.
Mm-hmm.
Can I have enough strength inside of myself to get curious, right? To ask a question, to be like, hey, I don't actually like that, or that's not working for me, but I'd like to understand where you're coming from or what's happening for you, rather than just coming out with an attack.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe that could go both ways across genders, where we're all kind of trying to navigate this by trying to understand each other and have compassion.
Yeah.
While at the same time learning and...
Yeah, that's a great concept there of like actually, because when social interactions in general, people do stuff that annoys us all the time.
Yeah.
And usually what we do is we just get away and we're just like, ugh, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
Or we judge them in our minds. What if we could actually say, hey, that's not working for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or what, could you try this? A lot of people would be very nervous and perhaps offended to do that on a date.
Totally.
But the alternative is to like get ghosted or something.
Right.
Okay. So, Shayna, I have an exercise I like to try,
Okay.
Which you're totally welcome if you're not into this. But I'd like to actually on camera practice saying like an affirmative consent, like I'd like to kiss you, and you tell me like what did it actually, like was it awkward? Like 1 would be like that was totally awkward.
Yeah.
And 10 would be like, wow, that really worked. And that doesn't mean you want to kiss me or not, whatever. Right. It's literally just like, in general, was that like super awkward, or was that...
I think this is great. I mean, because a lot of times I do practice this with my clients where it's clear, the boundaries are clear, we're not kissing, we're not touching, we're not anything. But I notice the impact in my own body. Like, do I feel kind of stirred inside and drawn in? Or do I feel like, oh God, that is not going to happen? Or
and it has nothing to do with us. It's like, if I were on a date with a guy like this who said that, what would I feel?
Right.
Like,
and I don't pretend to speak for all women, but I do get to give that in the moment, like this is what happened for me, which I think is really useful.
Okay. So I'm putting myself on the spot here. Okay. So I'm nervous.
Good for you. We could also...
Okay. All right. I'm going to just like feel into it.
Which is awesome, because as you're feeling into it, what I want to say is this is probably what it's going to feel like for a man, right? It's not just going to feel like, oh great, I'm down to...
Exactly. It's like, it's super awkward.
So much energy, and I can feel that. It's like, whoa, now there's so much energy.
It's law in college campuses in California and New York, and about to be in the entire nation of Sweden. Law for men to do something they've never done before, which is ask.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do it. And give me a totally on it. You don't have to like pat me in the back.
I don't have to be kind or nice. Or...
Yeah, okay. I really want to taste those lips of yours. May I?
That was good.
Okay, what on a 1 to 10?
On a 1 to 10, I would say I'd give it a good 8.
Okay, that's solid.
Yeah.
I'd say like 7 and above is kind of the zone.
Yeah,
like,
right? It doesn't have to be perfect.
Right. If you're at a 6. The format that I have practiced, and this takes practice.
Yes.
It really takes practice.
And I'd like to like debrief that too. But...
let's debrief it. So what made it work to get to an 8, and then what made it not be a 10?
Right. And did you say you have a format?
Oh, so the format I've come to is desire, like a statement. I desire X. May I?
May I?
Yeah.
I like that.
Because if I just ask, you're not necessarily feeling my desire. It's almost like I'm a little schoolboy. Like, can I?
Right.
Can I have a treat? It's like, yeah.
Right. Though I can also see the difference between, can I kiss you? Like, kind of this pulling back hesitation versus like, can I kiss you?
Yeah.
There is a difference of, can I actually, and this is silence or the kind of beyond words, but being able to relax into connection and intimacy is a big part of this.
Yes, that's one of the main points I want to communicate, is that the nervousness or not nervousness is independent of the asking.
Yes.
So every guy who's leaned in for a kiss has either experienced in his past being super nervous, like in middle school or high school, or maybe if he's learned a bit, he's experienced being really confident and being like, oh, I can tell she wants to kiss. This is going to be great. And that's you. If you're in the nervous state, it's going to be awkward whether you ask or don't. Every guy has
right.
Like,
you're saying. The awkwardness is already going to be there,
or not. Like every guy has leaned in for a kiss and had her like do the 180 or the 90 degree like, oh, here's my cheek.
God, I have a lot of compassion for men for that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I teach in one of the programs that I have for men is that embracing awkwardness dissolves awkwardness.
Yeah.
Right? That there's a way also where it's like it's just fucking awkward to be human.
Yes.
It's weird.
Yes.
You know, we want things from each
it's
other.
Awkward to be
it's
human.
awkward to be
Shane
human.
and
It's
James.
weird. Like we want things from each other and we don't, and then we're afraid.
And we're trying to put on this facade of smoothness.
Especially men, right? Trying to put on this facade, and women too. But I've got it together in a different way. But especially men, like you've been taught that it looks weak or not manly to say something or to ask, or it's a mess.
Yeah.
But
Okay, let's deconstruct. So what worked? What got it to an 8, and what made it not a 10?
Well, I think, and it's interesting because I was kind of all of a sudden you just came out with it, and I was like, whoa, okay, it didn't feel awkward, even though I could feel like my body started buzzing a little bit, like I could feel the nervous energy here.
Yeah.
But you also, there was something about you going for it, and not. I don't want to say that you can't hesitate or you can't go slow, but you just came out with it in a, maybe more that it was like a steady. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was just like you said it.
Yeah.
And I do think what you said about stating a desire, there's something about hearing the desire first that did start to it kind of painted a picture, or it awoke something in me of a possibility that before that moment I wasn't really thinking about or aware of. And then suddenly it was here versus, can I kiss you?
Yeah.
Which again, I could still see, you could even just say can I kiss you? Or I'd really love to kiss you. And if you're there and connected versus hesitating or pulling back, it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then what would have made it even it a 10?
Higher, even 10? Well, it's funny because I think one of the things I said that made it work was you came out with it. And then as I'm thinking about it now, I'm like, oh, even a little slower, taking a little more time to not feel like we're in this rush thing. I've got to get it out there.
Yeah.
If I don't get it out there now, something's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So even just slowing down and staying with our connection first, I think would have had it feel even more exciting.
Okay. Can I try one more time?
Sure.
All right. Shayna, all evening long, I've been wanting to kiss you. May I?
Okay, I'm just feeling. Somehow that one actually felt a little less.
That went down.
Yeah.
What we get to there?
Maybe more like a 6.5 or 7. And I don't think it was actually the words. I think it was more the presence.
Yeah.
Or me wanting. And this is funny. This one's a little hard to communicate. And I think this is something that women often want, but we don't know how to say. Or I don't even know how to talk about sometimes. But it's this wanting to just be in that space of silence or connection, or feeling seen, feeling appreciated before the words come.
Yeah. Okay. Can I do one more?
Sure.
Okay. Well, three's a charm.
Take 3.
All right. Shayna, those lips look so delicious. May I taste them?
Okay. The first part, I really did feel that. I felt you slowing down and not trying to just, get it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that felt more enticing and more exciting and more connected.
But the second
something
part,
about the may I taste them, I don't know, it was a little...
the wording.
Yeah, maybe it was the wording, the taste.
Okay.
It was a little strange.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was that? That went down?
What was that? It was probably around a 7. Like, it was,
I've been like...
well, it was different. The first part,
here.
Actually, the first part I would say maybe it was more like 8.5 or 9.
Okay.
And then the end was more...
Okay. Yeah.
7-ish.
Interesting. Okay. So, thank you. Yeah, thank you for... And let's do that thing at AMP where you cut the chords.
Cut the cord.
And
I just wonder if there's anything else to say about it or explain about it or kind of debrief. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because asking in itself is not unsexy.
Yeah.
Right? And I could see that if we were actually on a date, you might have leaned in or you might have put your hand on you. You might, like, there would have been a little bit more of a contact.
Yeah.
Yeah, context.
Yeah.
Contact.
And context.
And context.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, so it wouldn't just be coming out of nowhere. But
yeah,
I really like the idea of, and what I've seen, over the past 15 years of working with men is that, men come back to me and they're like, I did it, I talked about it, I had the conversation, I asked, and it was actually hotter, right? There's something that then, when we're talking about it, when we have this affirmative consent, both people can relax more, and then we're not trying to get this thing to go away, because I don't actually know if this is allowed, or if I'm supposed to be doing this. When we actually have affirmative consent, it's like, we both agreed to this, we both want this. We're both, and then of course there's a moment to moment. How attuned are we to each other, and a kind of negotiation in that way. But I find it helps people relax and feel their bodies more and feel more pleasure and feel more, love or care or whatever it may be, depending on your phase of relationship.
Totally. One thing I also want to presence is that I'm not a hardliner, like you always have to ask for a kiss or something. Mm-hmm. And that's why I put nonverbal. Is like, if you're feeling it and you just tell, right, this person wants to be kissed, and you're in a date and there's not going to be this disaster if she doesn't want to be kissed, because it's normal to try to kiss someone on a date. You don't have to ask. It's a practice. I do think asking before more explicit things we're in a time where that really makes sense. Like asking before touching breasts or putting hands down pants or something. Because sometimes women freeze and they're not sure if they want it or not, but they don't want to be awkward or they don't want to offend the guy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think when men and people are honest, we notice when those things happen. We notice when someone freezes. We notice when there's tension or hesitation. We notice when the look on someone's face is not a fully, yes. And so can you be willing to be honest about that? Knowing that even if it's not this person that you're going to have sex with, I believe it's more likely that you're going to have it if you're actually in this honest dialogue, right? Again, it may not be with that person who's in front of you, but it even may be, if you stop and you notice hey, I just kissed you and it seemed like you wanted it, and suddenly something happened, you don't seem that happy about it, or you don't seem that excited, and we get to actually be honest and real with each other. Then either it creates a next moment where it's oh, you liked a different kind of kiss, or oh, you suddenly felt nervous that something oh, okay, well, how about now? That we don't have to just put on these masks and be perfectly happy or have it together all the time, that we can actually be honest with each other.
Totally. So tell me and tell the audience a little bit, so if a guy's listening, I think guys need to have actual experiential practice like what we did. And that doesn't mean there's going to be touch or kissing or anything like that, but just actually energetically practicing. And so and it's fairly rare. I don't think there's a lot of people who do that. So you're someone who, if a guy wants to learn how to interact with a woman like you can actually guide him into that.
Yes.
How does that work?
How does that happen? I mean, these days I actually do it a lot over Skype, but sometimes I do it in person. And, there's a way of, I would say, we practice conversations, or we practice, whether it's talking or just even that kind of eye contact, making, energetic contact, and me kind of guiding him to feel more of his body, more of his desire, more of his, more of himself. And we kind of role play, but I don't pretend to be someone else. We actually have a conversation where we might role play a little bit of, I'd like to kiss you, or I'd like to have sex with you, or will you go on a date with me?
Yeah.
And then, so it's a little bit of me being someone else, but then I'm just like, we'll have a conversation where I'm still me.
Yeah.
And I still get to say, okay, in that moment, when you leaned in and you got a little closer, I could feel, this energy rise in me.
Right.
Or in that moment, something happened and I don't know what it was, but I saw your eyes kind of fade out. Glaze over, and like I could feel some kind of part of you pulling away inside, even though you were leaning closer. And so let's understand what happened. Some kind of shame came up, or...
Yeah, and you're so, I know from you having coached me a little bit like 10 years ago, like you're so attuned that it's almost like some kind of meter where, it's like the pin is going like... Tick, tick, tick,
totally.
like a Richter scale. I think what I learned from that experience, from the coaching, the Authentic Man program 10 years ago, I had no idea just how moment to moment, real time, women's reactions were changing. I thought it was basically like, oh, she thinks I'm hot, or she doesn't think I'm hot, or I do something confident and she thinks that I'm confident, and it's just boom. It's like a lot of guys think this. This is where that whole like friend zone idea comes in. Like either she wants to jump your bones or you're a friend zone. That's the way a lot of guys.
And the reality is that it's like a constant changing, like you said.
Yeah.
Right.
Would you say that guys can let's say they don't rank up very well at first.
Yeah.
Do you think guys can recover by being more present with a specific woman in an interaction?
Yes.
You've seen that.
Yeah, I've totally seen it. I've watched it happen. I actually married a man who I was friends with for 2 years, and there was a day where we got together and suddenly it changed and things were different. And he was interacting with me in a different way, and we had a different dynamic, and and I've had men start a conversation with a woman who's feeling a little bit like suspicious or awkward.
Right.
And then in his sincere desire to actually understand her, or, not push her beyond her boundary, that she started to relax and open up, and then kind of be like, oh, okay, I'm starting to trust this man, or, I trust his intentions. Now I can start to open my heart a little. Now I can start to open my body a little. Often women's hearts will open before our bodies will open.
I wish guys would get this message more, because we really have this whole like fear of the friend zone thing.
Yeah. And
I think like one of the messages I want guys to get, which you're sharing here also, is that if let's say she's not attracted to you right away, if you actually want to be friends with her and you interact with her because you want to spend time with her, not because you have an agenda, it's possible that might shift. But the paradox is you can't want it to shift and be like angling towards it. Like,
well, you can want it to shift.
Yeah, you can want it.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're pushing toward it.
Yeah.
Right, so pushing toward it is different. It's kind of like what you were saying, like, oh, how about now? How about now? How about now? How about now? Versus like, and this is what I often teach men, that there's this way of sometimes slowing down to speed up. Like the more connected we are in this moment, or if you're asking a woman out on a date in the grocery store or something, and you're like, okay, can I get your number? Versus, hey, we're having a conversation here. Like, if however I'm feeling you in this conversation is how I'm going to imagine being on a date with you will be. So if you're just rushing and trying to get me somewhere else, then I don't have a sense of that this is actually going to be enjoyable or
Yeah.
interesting or
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Thank you for being here and sharing and letting me try that crazy exercise.
Well, and thank you for creating the consent pledge and for, you know, being a man who yourself is willing to feel humble and also, you know, to look to other men and say like, hey, come join me, you know, that this is important.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And if guys want to find out more about your work and get in touch, where do they do that?
ShanaJamesCoaching.com.
Shana James Coaching. SHANA James Coaching.com.
Great.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope it gives you a sense of what's possible and how good your life can be. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe to Man Alive and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/manalive to get outtakes, videos, and raw footage I only share there. These are some of the most interesting parts of these expert conversations. You can also grab your copy of The Unknown Power to accelerate your career and solidify your confidence with women, because the two are related, and I know you don't have to settle for one or the other. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.